Hello everyone, this is part 6 of What If Naruto Joined the Teen Ants, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto woke to a sweat-sodden bed. A nightmare had plagued him while he slept. It had been something about power and Raven. As he tried to grasp at the details of the dream, they slowly became more indistinct. Fading from his memory. He pulled himself from the bed sheets and removed his sodden clothes. He found a clean shirt and some bottoms in a drawer beside his bed. Putting them on, he exited the room. Naruto quickly found his way to the Ann's living room. On the way, he made a point of placing his headband on his forehead. He entered the living room and was greeted by a room of grim faces. "How is she?" Naruto asked. Raven jumped up and fell into his arms, hugging him tight. Naruto was only faintly aware of clothes change of color. He was used to it by now. "She still hasn't woken up yet," Robin said, standing up. Beast Boy sat on the couch opposite Robin. He was curled up, hugging his knees to his sea as if he was depressed. "Beast Boy, are you okay?" Naruto asked. Beast Boy turned around. He had light tears in his eyes and a smile on his face. "I'm just so glad she's back," he said in a croaky voice. Beast Boy jumped up and startled Naruto by giving him a tight hug. "So are you going to join the lovebirds then?" Cyborg said with a large grin. He was soon knocked out of his chair due to being hit by a large green spiky tail. "Ouch," Cyborg said as he crumpled to the floor. Suddenly, the door to the corridor opened and Terra walked into the room. Terra woke up. Her head swam with images and she felt herself wince at the reminiscence of pain as she remembered the boiling magma that had surrounded her. She looked around at the painted walls. They depicted rocky canyons and blue skies. The sky itself shone brightly through the window. She was in her old room, and it was still exactly as it had been before. She got up and looked in the sea of drawers next to her bed. Inside of it, all her old clothes looked back at her. She pulled out a memorable pink dress and grimaced at it. She couldn't help but grin. Back before, Starfire had dragged her out to the mall and had insisted that she buy almost everything and anything due to the fact that the Ants had a lot of money. They were, after all, funded by the city mayor. She shoved the dress back in the drawers and pulled out a set of clothes that held more memories than she could have ever wished. It was the exact set of clothes that she had worn the first time she had met the Teen Ants. It was a pair of brown shorts and pink and yellow socks. There was a black shirt with a bright yellow T on it surrounded by a yellow circle. She found on top of her desk her pair of goggles that she used to wear. She looked in the mirror and felt a sickly sensation travel through her body. She was still wearing Slade's armor. Slade's insignia that was stamped on the B plate shone back at her as a powerful reminder of what he had made her do. Terra hated it. Well, she said to herself, if ever there was a time to test my powers, now would be it. Metal is only reformed rock, right? Purified, so. She reasoned with herself. Terra concentrated on the armor that encased her. Slowly but surely she felt her being meld itself with the metal, as though she were a part of it. It was difficult. She's never tried to manipulate metal before, and seen as she had just spent more than a year in a clump of rock without the ability to use her powers, she wasn't really sure what would happen. A creaking sound of metal straining reached her ears. Suddenly, large cracks ate their way through her armor and the entire outfit shattered to the floor. Realizing it wouldn't be good to just stand there without clothes, she scooped up her outfit on the bed and pulled it on. She took one last look at the room before exiting. She heard some voices and a loud crash and some teasing from Cyborg. She chuckled to herself. Some things never change, she mumbled with a smile. She opened the door and the room went quiet. Raven stood before her with a pure white cloak, flowing hair and a smile on her face. With an arm wrapped around her, there stood a blonde-haired boy with marks on his face like whiskers. He had cerulean blue eyes and a strange headband on his forehead. He wore a simple blue shirt and light brown bottoms. Okay, maybe some things do change, she muttered under her breath. Beast Boy ran up to her and she suddenly found herself being wrapped in his arms as he hugged her tight. Quick as a flash, he let go and jumped backwards. He stood there with a heavy blush on his face and a distinct shuffling of his feet. Hi BB, she said in a kind tone. Starfire's squeal sounded out, making them all jump a little at the suddenness of it. Terra, she said. She flew forwards rapidly and embraced Terra. Terra gasped for breath as she was crushed in Starfire's grip. Starfire let go. Beast Boy growled. He grabbed Starfire and somehow managed to pull her off of the gasping other girl. Did I do something wrong? Starfire asked. You almost K her, that's what. Beast Boy fumed. Terra stepped in between them and placed her hands on his shoulders. It's okay BB, I'm fine. She said sweetly. She turned around and faced a still shocked Starfire. Thanks for the hug Starfire, but next time, not so hard. Starfire blushed and apologized. That's okay, Terra said. She turned around and faced Beast Boy. She moved forwards and gently K his cheek. Thanks for protecting me. She walked away. Beast Boy stood there with wide eyes and a wide open mouth. He suddenly felt very wobbly and to the floor like a sheet of paper. Terra sat down on the couch. So, she said, feeling very awkward. I'm guessing you want to know everything. Robin stated. Terra's stomach let forth a loud growl and Terra placed her hand over it and blushed. But talking can wait, Robin said smiling. First, you need to eat. Then we talk. The ants all ate together. Terra ended up having an entire roasted chicken to herself and several legs of lamb. She ate large abundances of sweet corn and an entire 8-piece pizza. She even had one of Beast Boy's tofu waffles, which shocked everyone and made him feel a little ill. I guess she's hungry, Cyborg said with a grin. Me too. He picked up a huge chicken leg and downed it in a moment. Raven was sat next to Naruto. She suddenly got up and went over to the kitchen. What you doing? Naruto asked her. Raven blushed. I got you a little something, she said shyly. She pulled out a bowl and carried it over to him. The steaming contents wafted to Naruto's nose and he instantly knew what it was. Ramen, he screamed. He yanked the bowl out of Raven's hands and began to devour the contents with lightning speed. The rest of the group watched him with wide-eyed expressions and the distinct impression of sweat drops at the side of their heads. Even Terra was shocked. Naruto finished the bowl in under 2 minutes. He sat back and sighed contentedly at his full stomach. He looked at Raven. Thank you, he said. Once the feast was done, they all sat back on the couches and prepared themselves to answer any questions Terra might have. She asked many questions, not the least of which was about Naruto and Raven. So you two are together? Terra asked. Both Naruto and Raven blushed furiously. Leave the lovebirds alone, Cyborg said with a grin. Sorry, so, Raven, why does your cloak change whenever he's touching you? Terra asked. Raven blushed a little. Well, my emotions have been a little out of control lately. One of the things I can do is share my life force with another person. I can do this through she stuttered. AK, Terra asked with a smile. Raven yelped a little when Terra said it. She blushed furiously. She said. Yeah. And now, when I'm in physical, contact, with Naruto, I can, control my powers and emotions, well, perfectly. So touching him is like a power boost for you. Terra elaborated. Well, I guess you could say that. Raven said thoughtfully. You're so different, Terra said. Raven was shocked by this statement. I am, she asked. When you're in contact with him anyway. Before you never smile, now you can barely stop. You've made a few jokes, you've even laughed at one of Beast Boy's. That I never thought would ever happen. Terra stated. Raven blushed. And you can't stop blushing, Terra said, falling into a fit of giggles. Raven blushed even more, so did Naruto. After that she probed question to Naruto on his origins. She was fascinated by how he got here and it was obvious to see she was intrigued with him being a ninja. Ooh, could you show me some of your ninja moves? What are you best at? She squealed. Naruto blushed. He let go of Raven and approached Terra. He scratched the back of his N as he walked and stopped in front of her. Well, I'm good with Kage no Bunshin, he said. Shadow clone? She asked. Naruto was a little shocked. Terra blushed a little. I know Japanese. Beast Boy's eyes went wide. You too? Why does everyone know that frikkin language while I'm here not understanding the slightest thing? For crying out loud, what is going on with this world? Does everybody know Japanese or am I just miles behind everything? What is the world coming to? I mean, come on. He was suddenly grabbed from behind by Cyborg and his mouth was covered. Sorry about that, Cyborg said. Terra was a little frightened. She turned back to Naruto. So what is Kage no Bunshin? Well, it's where I use the chakra in my body to create an exact physical duplicate and share my chakra out to each one, giving them the ability to use jutsus of their own. Terra looked confused. Repeat that please, she asked. Naruto almost fell over. I'll just show, he said, shaking his head. He took his stance, crossed his index and middle finger on each hand with each other, and suddenly he began to clone himself. The replicas span out of him and surrounded Terra in a large circle. Terra was a little shocked, to put it lightly. She squealed in delight. The copies disappeared in a puff of smoke at the same time and Naruto stood before her on his own again. I can also do a cool Rasengan. No, Robin and Cyborg yelled. Naruto was taken back. We don't want any things broken in here. No Rasengan, Robin stated firmly. Naruto hung his head. I want to show you something, Beast Boy said. He grabbed Terra's arm and led her out of the room, leaving the rest of the ants a little bit confused. Beast Boy took Terra back to her room and made her sit on the bed. Beast Boy, why did you drag me here? Terra asked, feeling shy and confused. I wanted to give you something, he said, shuffling his feet. Beast Boy went to the closet and opened it up. He fished into the back of it and ended up throwing everything else out and making a mess. He pulled out a small black box. He looked at the mess he'd created and told her to wait a moment. He began to shove the other things back in the closet and a few things that hadn't been in there in the first place. The closet was soon overflowing. Beast Boy tried to force the doors closed. The burst open and he was knocked to the floor and a heavy bundle of clothes and other items flowed on top of him, burying him from head to toe. Ow, he mumbled. Terra walked over and picked up the box. She looked at it curiously before opening it. She gasped. Beast Boy jumped to his feet. Don't open it yet, he said. He then noticed he was too late. He gave up. Oh well. Terra reached into the box and pulled out a golden ring. It had an omnanite stone encrusted into its band that shimmered in the light. On the inside of the band, there were some inscribed words. Tara and Garfield forever, she read the words to herself softly. She looked up at him. How did you know? She began. Your real name, he interrupted with a smile. Tara Markov. After you were, well, you know. I went out and looked for any information I could about you. Slade left behind a few doents. I was hoping to find some sort of family or something, so I could tell them what had happened. Instead I found you didn't have a family. He looked to the floor and felt sad for her. Hey, it's okay. Adoption isn't as bad as people think, she said with a sweet smile. Terra took the ring and placed it on her index finger. She turned to Beast Boy and smiled. Leaning over, she gave him a simple K on the cheek before walking out of the room, leaving a blushing Beast Boy behind. The ants, including Terra and Naruto, gathered in the living room to listen to Robin, who had called them there. I have an idea, Robin said to the others. An idea for what? Beast Boy asked. Naruto, Robin said, looking at Naruto. You're going back to the H.I.V.E. to rejoin. Naruto looked a little uncomfortable. Are you sure about that? He asked. I'm all for going back, but would they even accept me back? I did break out, ya no. I know that, that's why you're going to go in with something that Slade wants, he said. Terra made a small wincing sound as she heard the name. And what's that? Starfire asked. Robin looked at all of them in turn before saying simply, me. What? You can't do that, Terra exclaimed, getting up from her seat. How is he here anyway? I thought he was S. Terra was obviously distraught by this news. Beast Boy took her by the hand and made her sit down again. Together, the ants began to fill in the blanks for her. They told her all about what happened with Trigon and Raven, all about how they had recaptured Slade. Everything. Terra seemed to be in shock throughout the whole ordeal. Which wasn't all that surprising, considering what Slade put her through. Obviously feeling tired among other things, she went to her room to think. Beast Boy got up and was about to go talk to her when Naruto stopped him. Maybe you shouldn't be the one to do this, Naruto said. Let me, she needs a friend, and we both know you're something more. Beast Boy accepted this and sat back down. Naruto walked out of the living room and down the corridor. When he finally came to Terra's room, he knocked 3 times. Come in, he heard a timid voice say from the other side. Naruto entered. He'd seen Terra's room before, so he wasn't all that surprised at the paintings of rocks and orange canyons that covered the wall's surface. Are you okay? Naruto asked. Terra was sat on her bed staring at her shoelaces. Naruto sat down next to her. Terra, he asked. Why is he back? She asked in a sad tone. Why does he always come back? Why doesn't he just go? She yelled. The tower shook for a moment as the earth moved beneath it. The quake was only brief and didn't damage the tower at all. Terra looked up at Naruto and found him to have a huge smile on his face. She was a bit taken back by this. Why are you smiling like that? She asked, feeling a little afraid. Naruto shrugged. Because when others are sad, the need to be around those that are happy to make themselves feel better, he said with a slight grin. Terra chuckled a little. See, it works, Naruto said. They laughed a little and quickly fell into a comfortable silence. Terra looked up at Naruto and smiled sweetly at him. Thank you, Naruto. Thank you for saving me, she said. Terra leaned forward and gave Naruto a light peck on the cheek. Naruto felt himself become hot with blush and a spark of bewilderment and fear erupted in his mind. Terra looked at his embarrassed and shocked expression and laughed. It had to look real. It had to be real. It was the only way. They all knew what would happen, but they didn't know when. That was for Naruto to decide. Well, Shadow, as of 2.5 hours ago. And he'd decided tonight. There was even a clone. A clone of himself, sleeping, in his room wearing Robin's casual clothes. The real Naruto currently looked at the T-Tower from a fair distance. This was going to be risky. Someone could get hurt. Hell, they were meant to get hurt. Robin had specifically stated that none of it was to be faked. They were to treat Naruto as if he truly were an enemy. Raven had completely disagreed with this, saying she couldn't. Naruto had helped her to understand. No doubt she had meditated before each night to keep her emotions at bay, so that she wouldn't hold back. It had been 4 days since Robin had come up with the plan. Naruto was to become Shadow again and attack the tower. He was to K Robin and to attack the ants as though they were real enemies. Naruto himself couldn't do this, so he called upon Kyuubi's help once again to alter his personality to a darker and angrier one. He sat in a crouched position on the top of a building not too far off. He thought about what he needed to do and, to his surprise, felt nothing about it. Kyuubi was doing a good job with his emotions. Thanks Furball, I just hope it lasts, he thought. Naruto set off. He jumped swiftly onto the building in front of him. Quickly he devised a plan. Raven would be the first to know he was there, she would sense him. She was the first and he'd have to take out. Beast Boy would be the second. He often morphed in his sleep by accident, and if, by some chance, he was a dog, he would hear Naruto before he could get to him. So it would have to be swift. While Robin was his target, he would need to be taken out before he could confront the other two ants and Terra. So putting him unconscious would help. The next would be Starfire. Even though she's from a different planet and has many powers, she doesn't have super hearing. This would help. Cyborg would be difficult. The ants had tried to teach him about electricity and stuff, but it had been difficult to understand. Apparently though, if something were to put electricity into something that already ran on it, the object would stop working. How? Naruto didn't know. But he did know that Cyborg ran on electricity, and he did know that it was apparently similar to lightning. The answer was simple, lightning blade. Terra would be the final one, she would be easy. Her power of controlling Earth wouldn't really do much in helping her know he was there. But before any of them could be dispatched, he would have to deal with Cyborg's alarm system in the tower. Not to mention his clone. That would be difficult. His clone knew to attack him as though he was the enemy, and because Naruto's power had only been shared once, the clone was as good as he was. Plus Naruto had tried to add a little bit more so that the clone wouldn't disappear after one hit. If everything worked right, the clone wouldn't disappear at all. Not until Naruto willed it to. Even as he thought about the plan he knew it wouldn't work. Things never went according to plan. But it was better to have a plan that might work, than to have no plan and fail outright. Naruto reached the tower quickly. He looked at the front door inquisitively. He tried to think of a way around the security system. Annoyingly, he couldn't find one. It looked as though things would have to be done the old-fashioned way. Putting the plan aside, Naruto approached the door. Raven sensed him the moment he set foot on the island of the T-Tower. She knew who it was, but he felt different. Like he truly was an enemy. It felt as though he were a whole different person. A loud crash erupted from the darkness and the tower alarms blared out. Naruto walked into the main foyer. His visage was indistinct in the darkness, so his appearance was nothing more than a shadow. The ants ran into the living room and looked around. There was no one. The main door hung open on a single hinge. Half of its surface had been torn away by something of immense power. Robin inspected the door carefully. Naruto ran into the room and joined the others. He was still wearing some pajamas that Robin had given him. "What's going on?" he asked. Suddenly they were surrounded. Black shapes in the darkness surrounded them without a sound. There was nowhere to go. "Who are you?" Robin demanded. The intruders didn't answer, they only attacked. Suddenly the ants were swarmed. Black-donned ninjas from all angles struck out at them. Shuriken stars struck Cyborg in the back, causing a breach in his auxiliary power. He short-circuited and fell to the floor unconscious. Beast Boy turned into Lion and swiped out at the attackers. He was struck in the back by something and stumbled to the floor. He changed back in his hurt state and narrowly avoided 3 Shuriken stars that struck the floor as he rolled out of the way. Beast Boy got to his feet and made to hit an intruder, but his attack was easily defended and he was struck in the side by a powerful kick. Terra really couldn't do anything. She wasn't able to use her powers without causing damage to the building. It was only as she was knocked to the floor that she decided the risk was worth it. She forced up a large segment of the flooring and hurtled it at the attackers. It struck them and squashed them against the wall, causing them to disappear without a trace. Robin held his own. He was attacked from all angles. Kicks and punches came at him and he scarcely managed to dodge or defend any of them. He retrieved his staff and swung at an intruder. His staff was caught. Robin stared at the attacker in shock. Suddenly, the ninja holding his staff flipped over the pole and kicked Robin in the face, causing him to fall to the floor. Starfire lit up the darkness with starbolt after starbolt. A ninja ran at a wall behind her, ran up it, kicked off, barrel rolled in the air and drove his foot into her back. She hit the floor hard. Raven didn't want to attack. She and the others obviously knew who it was they were fighting, and they knew they had to do it, but she couldn't. She defended their attacks with her powers but never attacked once. Suddenly, she found she couldn't move. Her cloak had been pinned to the floor by some Shuriken stars. She turned back to the attackers and realized she should have focused more on the battle, because a large foot suddenly collided with her face. Raven fell to the floor with a thud. The Naruto that was still with the ants was the most difficult to take down. Clone Naruto stood alone against the O of the ninja attackers. So he copied himself. A silence passed. The attacking ninjas stared at the army of Naruto's. It was an even army. It seemed that they had formed a kind of standoff, for none of them made a move to attack nor speak. The Narutos suddenly all began to create Razingans. The attacking ninjas did the same. They all attacked. Razingans met Razingans. Narutos met ninjas. There was a great flash of light and suddenly there was only one ninja and one Naruto. Both were lying on the ground. Naruto out of shadow felt exasperated and attempted to gain his breath back. The clone he had placed in the ants to keep up pretenses was perhaps too much to handle. An equal share of chi and power as Naruto himself, the clone was as powerful as he was, and it certainly wasn't going to disappear anytime soon. He was beginning to think that maybe the plan was working too well. He struggled to get to his feet and noticed that the clone had done the same. They stared at each other. Naruto attacked the clone. He sent forth his knee but it was easily blocked and countered. The clone made to kick him in the side of the head, but Naruto caught the leg. He thrust the clone around and threw him at a wall. The clone flipped and landed, feet first on the wall and kicked off at him. A great pain through Naruto as the clone drove his knee into his sea. Naruto fell with the clone on top of him. He used the momentum to wrap his legs around the clone's torso from behind and flipped when he hit the floor. The clone was hurtled through the air and fell to the floor with a thud. They both got up and made to punch each other. Both punches hit and soon they began a flurry of attacks. Each attack was predicted and countered, and each counter was defended and reversed, and each reverse was countered with an attack. Naruto realized he was going to have to cheat. There was simply no way the plan would work. So, using the link between him and his clone, changed the disposition of the clone's chakra flow. The clone was now a little weaker. Naruto noticed the change instantly when the clone failed to predict an elbow to the torso. Naruto flipped and drove his foot into the clone's chin, sending him hurtling backwards. The clone struck a wall and fell to the floor unconscious. Naruto stood there and took some deep breaths. He found Robin unconscious on the floor and scooped him up. Jinx sat in the main hall of the H.I.V.E. feeling depressed. When she had been taken away, she had been interrogated, taunted and even beaten. Slade wasn't going to kill her, but she wasn't allowed to leave. She was made to live in the H.I.V.E. base without any choice. Plus, Naruto was gone. She knew that she should have been angry at him for lying, but she knew why he had done it. During her beatings she knew that if she told them who Shadow was, then they would stop and maybe even congratulate her, but for some reason, even then, she hadn't. The thought of telling them Shadow's identity made her stomach curl. She couldn't help it. Was she in love? The thought probably should have made her stomach do a backflip, but instead, it made her heart flutter. Suddenly there was a loud creaking sound and the main doors to the hall were opened slowly. 3 members of the H.I.V.E. walked in. Behind them was Shadow. Jinx's heart skipped several beats at the sight of him. His lip was B and he had a small bruise on the left side of his face. Behind him were 2 other members of H.I.V.E., obviously there to stop him from getting away. Shadow approached Slade. Slade heard the sound of the door but paid it no heed. It was only when he was aware that someone was approaching him that he turned around. Shadow looked up at him with fierce eyes. Slade thought he was going to pounce when Shadow crouched down on one knee, but it seemed he was bowing to Slade. Slade, Shadow said with a dark voice. I humbly apologize for my previous transgressions. But I hate to be confined and found I really had no choice but to escape. I have brought you a gift as a token of my loyalty. Slade raised an eyebrow within his mask. You have brought me a gift? Slade asked. Shadow nodded. And what gift do you think is worthy enough? Slade said in a harsh tone. Shadow raised his head and looked up into Slade's single eye. This, he says. 3 H.I.V.E. members walked into the hall. The middle one was carrying somebody in their arms. As they got closer, Slade saw who it was they were carrying. He has been drugged, Master. He will not wake up for some time. Now, may I rejoin the H.I.V.E.? Shadow asked, bowing his head once again. Slade walked up the Shadow and placed a hand on the boy's head. Of course you can. He placed his hand under the boy's chin and raised Shadow's head so that the boy was looking into his eye. Slade's eye narrowed. Naruto Uzumaki. Slade, Naruto said in the darkest voice he could muster. I humbly apologize for my previous transgressions. But I hate to be confined and found I really had no choice but to escape. I have brought you a gift as a token of my loyalty. Naruto felt his palms beginning to sweat. On the way here, he had drugged Robin so that he would stay asleep. It all had to be done properly. Robin had stated that he knew what he was doing and that he could handle anything that Slade had in wait for him. But if anyone at the H.I.V.E. had an ability which may be able to check whether he was truly unconscious or not, their plan would go down the drain. So he had to be drugged. Naruto kept his eyes on Slade's mask before bowing him again. You have brought me a gift? Slade asked in a curious tone. Naruto nodded his head. And what gift do you think is worthy enough? Slade's venom in his voice shot through Naruto like a knife. He hoped this would work. This, he said simply. He heard the footsteps as the H.I.V.E. members carrying Robin walked into the room. Robin's cadaver was placed on the floor and a small groan escaped the youth's sleepy lips. Naruto looked up at Slade again. He has been drugged, Master. He said as if he had been asked a question. He will not wake up for some time. Now, may I rejoin the H.I.V.E.? He requested. Naruto bowed his head again and gazed at the floor. He couldn't help but feel fear and apprehension mixed together as he heard Slade's light footfalls as he drew near. He found himself wondering how a large man such as Slade was so light on his feet. Slade reached him easily. Naruto could see the black metal and leather of the man's boots. He almost jumped out of his skin as a gloved hand rested itself on his head. Of course you can. Were the words he heard. A wave of relief spread through him. So the plan had worked. Slade's hand stroked down his cheek and rested on Naruto's chin. The hand pulled his chin up and soon he was almost eye to eye with Slade himself as the man bent over to look at him closely. Naruto Uzumaki. The words came from Slade's mouth but Naruto heard them as if they were miles away in a dark place. A place that was so rapidly approaching he was in it in milliseconds. Slade knew who he was. The hand struck before Naruto had time to see it. Pain flashed through Naruto as he flew in the air and landed with a heavy thud. Cyborg sat on the couch with the others feeling very worried. They had managed to fix the damage of the fight, it had been very convincing. Suddenly, the clone Naruto beside him vanished in puff of smoke. They all felt a s of alarm. Naruto had said that there were only a few ways for the clone to go, he either willed it away, it received too much damage, or he himself was hurt enough to lose his concentration. The ants didn't believe it was the former too. Naruto tried to get up, he placed his hands on the floor and began to push his body off of the ground. A foot was suddenly driven into his side. He gasped in pain as he was thrown into the air with the force of the blow. Did you honestly think you had me fooled? Slade asked in his monotone voice. You tried to play me for a fool, boy. He said viciously. Did you think I wouldn't find out, that I would let you play your game? Slade reached down and grabbed Naruto by the T. He lifted the ninja up into the air by a single hand. You are sorely mistaken, he said. He span and thrust Naruto down into the ground. A large crack formed where the boy hit, causing a small amount of crimson bee to sprout from Naruto's mouth. He picked the boy up again and threw him. Naruto managed to gain control and spin in the air. He landed on his feet and faced Slade defiantly. How did you know? Naruto shouted angrily. Slade seemed to chuckle slightly. I always know, he said. Slade charged. Raven knew something was desperately wrong. Naruto was hurt, she knew it, she had to save him. She flew. The fist came faster than Naruto could see. It struck his stomach and all the wind was forced out of him. As he was hunched over, he saw the knee rise up and felt it into his body. Naruto felt faint. He couldn't breathe, he was hurting all over. In all his life, Naruto had never faced someone like this. The robot he had faced before had been nothing. Absolutely nothing compared. This Slade was brutal, efficient, and merciless. He felt even more pain as he was thrown to the floor. Slade walked casually up to him, he raised his foot and prepared to sit down on him. Naruto managed to just roll out of the way. As he rolled, he threw 3 shuriken stars at Slade. In his weakened state they were badly aimed and 2 of them missed. One of them almost struck Slade's face, but in a moment Slade had caught the star in between his fingers. He observed the throwing star simply before throwing it aside and continued. He walked towards Naruto. Naruto tried to scurry away, but when he realized there wasn't any escape, he decided he had to fight. If Naruto were to say, it wasn't in his nature to face those stronger than him, it would be a downright lie. His track record at home disproved such a remark. True, he had never been one to choose his opponents wisely, but he was not a complete idiot. He knew when there was no chance of winning. Never had Naruto seen such power in a person. He had faced ninjas of great power, giant summons and jutsus that could tear an island apart with their strength, but never had he faced this. Slade had full dominance. His mere punches and kicks held a story within him, a story of complete control over every single cell within his entire body. Each blow told of merciless brutality that would cause even Hokages to shake in fear. Naruto forced himself to his feet and fell off his fabric mask, revealing the rest of his face. He took off the headband and retrieved his own from a back pocket that Cyborg had installed so he could take it with him. After all, wouldn't want Beast Boy trying to sell it again, would they? Slade had stopped his advance and watched in silence as Naruto put on his headband. Naruto lowered his hands and looked at Slade fiercely. Slade seemed to chuckle. I'm going to enjoy this, boy. Slade charged. Naruto stayed where he was. Slade thrust his fist at Naruto. A puff of smoke happened and a small piece of wood with a smiley face on it appeared in his place. Naruto had used the wood from the surrounding places for the replacement jutsu, he hoped it would be enough. Slade's fist burst through the wood easily. But suddenly, he jumped up and brought his leg round in a perfect axe kick behind him. Naruto had just emerged from above him and was about to strike Slade's back with an aerial attack, when Slade's foot was driven into his stomach. Naruto was driven to the floor. Slade picked him up by the hair, causing him to groan in pain, and threw him at the nearest wall. Naruto crashed against it painfully and collapsed to the floor. Suddenly, Jinx jumped on Slade's back. "Leave him alone," she screamed. Slade grabbed her and pulled her off of him. He threw her to the ground. Jinx rolled on the ground and sent several pink bolts at Slade. Slade easily dodged them and drove a powerful kick into Jinx's stomach. "You should know your place," he growled as she flew into the air into a wall. Jinx fell to the floor unconscious. Naruto pulled himself to his feet. He charged up the Rasengan. It took only a few moments and thankfully Slade still had his back turned. Naruto charged, jumped, Slade turned round, grabbed him out of the air, spun him round using Naruto's own momentum, and him into the ground. Naruto was lifted up into the air by Slade. By now Naruto had no strength left. Slade pulled back his fist. It was obvious he was about to end this battle, it was more of a game for him. Less of a fight and more of a. Suddenly, a wall exploded. Naruto was dropped to the floor. He tried to see what the commotion was about, but he had to wait because his vision was blurry with pain. Eventually, he found himself able to see better. Raven. Raven felt a small notion of Naruto's pain. Raven had been hurt before. Raven had been angry. Raven had been terrified. She had even been afraid of herself at times, but now, she was all of that and more. She burst through the wall, her cloak spread out below her like a demon in itself. Tentacles of pure darkness surrounded her body and her eyes were but four bright red S. Slade was lifted from the ground and thrust against every wall imaginable. She him left and right in her rage, she cracked and crumpled and destroyed every surface she chose to be his pain. She brought him finally up close to her and gazed at him. His mask and suit were cracked heavily and looked as though it may fall apart. His eye was closed. The eye opened. Slade laughed. Slade somehow broke free of Raven's power and grabbed her. In one motion he brought her down to the ground and her back on his knee. Raven howled in pain as spine almost shattered from the force. She was lifted up, into the ground, lifted up again, and thrown into a wall. Raven tried rise to her feet or fly herself up with her powers but she was too weak from pain. She needed Naruto. If only she could touch him, she would be more than powerful enough. Slade's fist came down, everything went black. "No!" Naruto called. Something erupted deep within him. He had felt it before. He knew what it was. And for once, he accepted it without question. A deep howl of rage spilled forth from his lungs. A crimson-red aura surrounded him. The image of two tails slowly came through from the aura. Naruto's eyes became a deep red, his teeth bared and seemed more fanged than usual. His hands dug into the ground in a very claw-like way. He crouched on all fours growling his rage as Kyuubi's chakra flowed through him freely. Slade approached Naruto casually. He didn't know what was going off with the boy, but it wouldn't matter. The boy would soon meet his fate. Slade stood over the youth and looked down at him, he almost felt sorry for him, almost. Slade raised his fist, and without another word, he brought it down as fast and hard as he could. Naruto caught it. Slade couldn't believe it. Naruto had caught it, but not only that, he had hold of it in a vice-like grip. Slade couldn't get free. Naruto's nails dug deep into Slade's gloves and into his flesh. This only caused a minor pain which he could well possibly sleep through. He had no worry over this, what he did have worry over was the look in Naruto's eyes. It wasn't Naruto. It was something more. A beast it seemed had been awakened, and for the first time in a long time, he was afraid. Naruto's fist hit him. It didn't have any speed of its own. It was merely on the ground in one moment, and then against Slade's sea the next. As though time itself had put it there without moving forward. However it had happened, it hurt. A huge spider-webbed crack formed in Slade's sea plate. Naruto pulled Slade down and close-lined him. Slade fell to the floor. Naruto grasped Slade's head, lifted it up, and brought it back down. He S&S Slade's face into the ground. Crack after crack, dent after dent was etched into the floor's surface. Naruto then threw him into a wall. In an instant he was on top of Slade again, pounding him into the surface of the large Parian. Naruto threw Slade again. Slade crashed to the floor again and let out a soft groan. Naruto walked up to him heavily. Robin began to wake up. Everything was chaotic. Robin slowly gained his vision back and the grogginess wore off. He looked around at the carnage. Suddenly, the rest of the ants, including Terra, rushed into the hall. The first thing Starfire saw was the carnage of Naruto and Slade's battle. She saw Naruto standing over Slade, bringing his fist down over and over again on the man's body. She almost felt pity for the man, but the thought of all he had done pushed such a feeling away. She was suddenly whipped over the back. She turned around and saw a purple-clad woman with long vine-like ropes coming from her wrists. A fight began. The ants faced off against the H.I.V.E. members while Naruto was left still with Slade. The fight between the ants and the H.I.V.E. wasn't as chaotic as usual, most of them were too engrossed in Naruto's battle to fight. Beast Boy himself was by Raven's side checking on her and watching the fight at the same time. Naruto looked down at the broken body of Slade. He felt such detestation for the man it was unbearable. He had to see Slade's face. Naruto reached down and gripped the edges of Slade's mask. In one swift movement he tore it away. He raised Slade up with a single arm and showed him to the hall. Everyone gasped. They did not gasp in surprise at the appearance of Slade, more at the fact that they could see his face to begin with. His appearance, though, was greatly obscured. His jaw was out of place, his cheeks were swollen with sea and bruises. He was a mess. His hair was a pure white and the other eye, well, he had none. What was in its place was nothing more than a dip in his skull. An empty socket. Slade also had a simple small white beard that was nevertheless very visible. Naruto placed Slade on the ground slowly and delivered one final punch to Slade's face. Slade's nose was crushed and his face was almost destroyed. He was obviously S. Naruto dropped him and began walking away. Everyone was silent. The silence passed for what seemed to be an age. Until there came a small sound. You can't defeat me that easy. Naruto stopped. Kyuubi's chakra still flowed through his veins, so felt no fear, but he had no doubt that without Kyuubi, he would be terrified. Slade had just spoken. Naruto spun around. Slade was standing in front of them. And what's more, his wounds were healing. There was no gasp from the others in the hall, they merely stared in shocked silence as Slade's face repaired itself before their eyes. A small smile etched into Slade's features as he gazed at everyone's shock. You made a fatal flaw, Naruto. He said. Tut tut tut. I thought you were better than that. Naruto and Slade shared glares and detestation as they gazed at each other. Do you want to know what your flaw was? Slade asked. Naruto didn't answer. I can't. He charged. Naruto attacked. Once again, Naruto beat Slade down. Time after time Naruto crushed and destroyed organs and bone and tissue. And time again it healed. Naruto had never before, he had never truly been angry enough or felt that they truly deserved it. To say the truth, he wasn't all that versed in the human anatomy either. So whether he gained an education of that when as he tore Slade's body to pieces with punches and kicks, no one knows. But he defiantly was trying to KO Slade. Slade never stopped healing. He healed slowly, and Naruto kept causing more and more damage to Slade's body, but the man never s. The ants and the H.I.V.E. had stopped their individual battles by now. They were too shocked to fight. They merely watched as the S of Slade's body took place. B and organs were out and thrown aside, this caused many to be ill at the sight. But each organ that was torn, removed or destroyed, was replaced. Robin stared in horror. For years he had wanted to see beneath the mask of Slade, to find out why he kept coming back, how he kept surviving. He had never even dreamed of the truth. Slade's features were surprising normal to Robin. He had thought they'd be scared or disfigured and that was why he wore the mask, but he was normal. Mostly. How did he heal? This question ran through Robin's mind over and over. He couldn't answer it, but it made sense. Countless times they had attacked and broken Slade's body, he had been crushed by boulders, rammed into walls, kicked, punched and beaten to a pulp. And yet he always came back. Always in perfect health. Always ready for more. If Robin was not seeing it for himself, He would have refused to believe that Slade had such a power. But he couldn't deny it now. Naruto Slade into the ground and pounded at him with his fists. He was tiring. He had beaten Slade, he had off limbs, destroyed and torn out organs, he had gained the man and even performed a perfect lightning blade that had Slade in half, he had reformed and healed from every attack. Naruto was rapidly becoming exhausted. Yes, Kyuubi had unlimited chakra and that could never wear out, but Naruto was still only human, and his body was still battered and bruised, he was still tired. He'd been here for 3 hours beating Slade, and the man refused to The red aura surrounded Naruto was slowly beginning to fade as Naruto became more exhausted. His eyelids got heavy and his blows became less devastating and soon were nothing more than menial punches. Slade caught one of his fists as it came down. The man pulled himself from the ground and picked Naruto up by the T. Once again Naruto watched as his features healed from its wounds. Slade was breathing heavily, he was wide-eyed and wincing slightly. Slade began. His voice was forced and very strained. Cannot. His voice was louder and Naruto knew he was going to shout the next word, S. He screamed. He forced Naruto into the ground with more force than he had done so far. Slade looked down at Naruto. The man seemed different to everyone's eyes. No longer cool and collective, but jittery and uneasy, paranoid even. What Slade was really feeling was fear and pain. Slade's heavy breaths caused him to hunch over as he gasped. He looked at his hands as though he couldn't believe what he'd done. But this was not the case. Slade had felt this kind of fear before. It happened every time he had healed from such injuries. But generally, such injuries had been caused by accidents, or multiple opponents. Never a single boy. Naruto had more power than Slade had ever seen. More power than Raven. More power than any of the Ans combined. More power than himself. It was only because of his own ability to heal that Naruto couldn't defeat him. Slade never thought he'd actually be grateful for the thing which had caused him so much pain. Memories flashed back in Slade's mind. Memories of screams. Screams of self-s. Me. The words echoed in his mind as the thought of 2 names entered his mind. In one moment he actually spoke them. But barely in a whisper. Adeline. He said at first. Joseph. He said second. Slade closed his eye. He looked down at the boy and felt a great hatred. He raised his right fist. He brought it down. Something struck him hard and caused him to stumble. He looked up and saw several rocks flying in the air. Behind them, Terra. Slade's eye widened in shock. Hello Slade. Good to see you, she said. Did you miss me? She sent the rocks at him. Slade was struck by all of them. If he had have been in a better condition, he would have been able to defend himself, he would have been able to defend or break the rocks or even dodge them. But he was in no way fit for the job. They struck him hard and he fell to the floor with a thud. Get out of here. I'm bringing the place down. Terra shouted. The other Ans understood. H.I.V.E. and an alike began to vacate the building. Naruto managed to pull himself to his feet. Raven was still inside here. Beast Boy carried her but her weight slowed him down greatly. Rocks and boulders fell from the room as the place began to collapse. Terra stopped, knowing that she had shook the building enough to bring it down anyway. She looked around and saw Naruto. Come on Naruto, she called. Naruto ran up to Raven and Beast Boy. He grabbed Raven from Beast Boy and ran out. He found it strange that before he had seemingly had no energy. But now that it involved Raven, he had more than enough. The moment he touched her, her clothes turned white. She woke up instantly. Naruto, she whispered. Naruto ignored her. His sole focus was getting her out. Beast Boy and Terra ran. Terra made a point of keeping any rocks from landing on them. This was greatly appreciated. They were soon out of the H.I.V.E. The building crumpled. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.